Hello. I bought one in order to get one free, but stuff still happened. So what's up, dear listener? It's gonna be a rough one. We're gonna start off with something different before we dive into the rest. So we're gonna start off with a cheesy heist, one of the cheesiest possibly. A guy in Texas was recently arrested due to a mac and cheese heist. A former Chick-fil-A employee, Keyshawn Jones, went back to Chick-fil-A after being fired and decided to try to make a bit of money. Not from working there, from going behind the counter and ringing up 100 orders of macaroni and cheese catering trays. It's at this point that I would like to say, I didn't know Chick-fil-A did mac and cheese. Or catering trays. I guess I knew they did catering trays for like the nuggets and catering trays of like hating queer people. But mac and cheese, that's new to me. Anyway, apparently it's about $100 per tray. He went in and rang up 800 trays. So far, it's pretty mac. Let's talk about the cheese. What he ended up doing was refunding all of these orders to his credit card. 800 orders at about 100 a pop. That's 80 grand of refunds to his credit. As you might imagine, he's super arrested. It actually took a few tries to get him, but they got him. So as of April 17th, he was arrested. I just want to note, I think the most important part of this story is I first saw this on BBC, and I just want to mention this. The BBC wanted to make it clear that these trays have about a 10,000 calorie caloric content. That was part of the article. It was like, yeah, this heist happened. By the way, look, it's 10,000 calories per tray. Good to know. Good to know. Anyway, don't do that. Don't do that. That's like the most arrestable crime imaginable. Guy went in and was like, I'm going to ring up in this ledger falsified records and then refund them to my bank. It's like just the most traceable crime in history. I'm going to go rob a bank and just like leave a little note that says, hey, everyone, it was me. Here's my address. All right. That was the warm up. Let's talk about Louisiana. What's going on? Quite a lot is going on in Louisiana. I want to preface by saying I'm not a Louisianian. I'm not from Louisiana. So this is my best effort to internalize everything that's going on the ground, but it's also kind of like a national thing. So here we go. I want to start by talking about Calvin Duncan. And I want to say that this was originally going to be the primary focus of this story, but even more ridiculous stuff has happened out of Louisiana since this. Calvin Duncan was arrested and found guilty by a jury of first-degree murder. He spent almost 30 years in prison. One problem, he didn't do it. Like at all. While he was incarcerated, he taught himself law in order to help himself and other inmates navigate their legal situations. He became what was known as a jailhouse lawyer, not an official lawyer, but someone who actually could like navigate some of this bullshit. After years of incarceration, new evidence came up in his trial that showed that the cops lied in the trial. Who'd have thunk it? So after having maintained his innocence, he now has this opportunity to push back and get out. Here's the thing. The state was like, cool, yeah, I mean, there's this new evidence and it's pretty damning for us, but what if instead of going through all the rigmarole to make it easy for us and you, we're gonna do a plea deal. The plea deal is we will drop the charges down to manslaughter and then you can get out on time served. Duncan took the deal to get the hell out after 30 years of false imprisonment. And then everything got wackier from there. Duncan would go on to be exonerated by Louisiana's factual innocence policy. Basically, he was factually innocent, and so they expunged the record. Duncan got his law degree and started doing a whole bunch of community activism, specifically in criminal justice reform, all the while being a thorn in the side to a bunch of politicians across Louisiana, including then Attorney General Jeff Landry. Duncan would then run for office. He was running for a position that it's very, very niche. Let me read it off. Orleans Parish Clerk of Criminal District Court, basically a clerical position around criminal justice stuff. But it has meaningful power, and the person who was in that seat was routinely referring to Duncan as a murderer. And Landry was upset about the fact that Duncan was saying he was exonerated, despite having been exonerated. Landry was like, nah, it's not a real exoneration. Remember, he took that plea deal, so he said he was guilty, which is how guilt works. Despite sitting politicians calling him a murderer on TV and the Attorney General pushing back on him, he won his election with 68% of the vote, only for the Republican legislature in Louisiana to turn around and pass a bill that removed that seat before he could actually take up the position. They expressly were like, no, fuck this guy. We don't want him to have a position at all. We'd rather get rid of the position entirely. And so they very cynically put forth a bill saying that they're just trying to save money by consolidating positions. The money that could potentially be saved by consolidating these positions is negligible. It's a rounding error. Not to mention the unknown future impact of changing this position. Who knows how much this might cost? The legislature passes the bill. The governor, who was formerly the Attorney General, Jeff Landry, signs the bill. The state effectively passed a law preventing one dude from having the seat that people elected him to. Obviously, that's fucked, and there's already been a bunch of lawsuits and pushback, to the point that there was actually a restraining order placed on Duncan or the bill. I don't exactly know how restraining orders for this kind of legal purpose works. Long story short, a court was like, stop that. So Duncan shows up to his first day of work after the court said, stop trying to stop this guy from having his job. About half an hour after showing up to work, another court said, actually, no, fuck this guy. The 5th District Court of Appeals was like, nah, we're going to actually uphold the law. And so he went home after like half an hour of work. As of now, it's just in legal limbo. We don't exactly know what's going to happen, but essentially the entire state's legislature is fighting to prevent a dude who was elected from having been elected already. I've heard of changing the rules while you're playing when it's not going your way. I haven't heard of changing the rules after you've already lost. Actually, I have. That's been happening across this country. This is only part 1 of the Louisiana story. Part 2, gerrymandering. Going to begin this section by giving a quick overview of gerrymandering for people who are not in a place where this happens. Side note, if you're one of those people, can I move in with you? Thank you. Gerrymandering. It quite literally gets its name from a guy named Jerry who signed a bill that fucked with a district that ended up looking like a salamander. They merged the two together, gerrymander. In the United States, we have 2 houses of Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The Senate has 2 representatives per state. The House of Representatives has a variable number per state, generally based on population. Generally. States are carved up into districts that will be used to actually vote for a congressperson to represent them in Washington or in the state legislature. These districts are drawn by political committees. They quite literally, every 10 years or so, usually with the census, they'll look at the maps and redraw the districts, in theory, to update them to be more fair. But in reality, people end up gerrymandering. They look at the map and they say, how can we modify the existing districts to give our side an advantage in the electorate? That's gerrymandering. How can we work this map to our statistical advantage, regardless of how absurd the districts end up looking? So gerrymandering, I want to be clear, this happens from both parties. Democrats and Republicans, they both gerrymander. Recently, there's been an uptick in gerrymandering bullshit ever since Texas decided that they were going to try to update their maps in the middle of a cycle. Rather than being on the sort of like 10-year census-aligned rework, they were like, there's an election coming up and it doesn't look good for Republicans, so we're going to redraw our map to give more Republican seats so that we can win. So Texas was like, hey, we're going to just draw out virtually all Democrat representation from our state. Just because we want to. The legislature pushed it through and the governor signed it. And then it went through a bunch of legal bullshit, but ultimately was upheld. This kicked off a huge back and forth. States, quite literally, right and left, were all trying to do their redistricting now. Since then, it's been a game of popcorn. A whole bunch of states are all trying to do the same thing, trying to undo or re-undo the damage that Texas kind of started here. I want to be clear, it's not like there wasn't existing gerrymandering before Texas did this, but what Texas did was flying in the face of all understood norms, which is not surprising. That is the MO of the current Republican Party. Just ignore norms, and then when people make us think about that, just be like, that's not the law. Why do you care? Anyway, gerrymandering. Louisiana. They have about 1/3 black population. The most recent Louisiana district map had 6 districts, 2 of which were majority black. It's about equal to the population representation. Except that wasn't always the map. Previously, there was only 1 district. They had to fight to get that second district to have any kind of meaningful representation. And this pissed off a lot of white people. A coalition of voters who literally referred to themselves as non-African American voters sued the state and was like, hey, we say this is racist because you gave black people representation and took it away from the whites. This was a lawsuit that went all the way to the Supreme Court that ultimately handed down a decision that gutted the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act is a landmark piece of legislation that came about in the Civil Rights era. helping to get minority representation at all. What the court has essentially done is change the rules around how to prove if an electoral map is unconstitutional. You now have to prove that it was explicitly drawn with racist intent. It goes beyond saying this map does not properly represent these minorities. You have to specifically say the people who drew this map were being racist about it. This more or less removes that avenue for legal justice. This is not the end of the Louisiana story. So this just happened. And Louisiana has a primary election going on right now. And the Supreme Court is like, hey, yeah, your district map is all fucked up and you can redraw it if you want to because it's unconstitutional. And so Landry signs an executive order postponing the primary elections that were already underway. Some mail-in ballots have already been returned, and they're like, wait, no, we want to pause the elections so we can redraw our district map to remove representation from minorities before we do this vote this time around. John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, has been trying to undo the Voting Rights Act for basically his entire career. It's not a secret. It's like his pet project. This was a 50-year-long plan coming together, all sorts of groups, all sorts of organizations and lobbyists, and a lifelong effort from one of the most powerful people in the country to overturn voting rights for minorities. Before I finally move on from this, I do want to be clear that it's not like this is happening in a vacuum with no pushback. Like I said, there's been legal pushback every step of the way, and people are pissed. Turns out when someone's elected to a position with overwhelming support and then you try to undermine that position even existing, it doesn't go over well. So voters, activists, journalists, all sorts of folks have been pushing back both directly and legally. It's not going uncontested. It should also never be swept under the rug, and these people should not be allowed a moment of grace. Hey, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. If you could just take a second to, subscribe if you are not, maybe leave a comment and like, stuff like that. I would really appreciate it. If you want to go a little bit further, I also have a Patreon. That is a great way to directly support me and the channel and all that good stuff. Cool. Moving on to tech bullshit. We're moving away from political bullshit into tech bullshit. Let's talk about smart glasses. Remember back in 2012, Google was like, hey, here's Google Glass. You're going to forget about this in a couple years. But at the time, it was a big deal. Not because it was like a product that was going to change the world, but because it was a product that was going to creep out the world. I guess it changed a little bit in that way. Google Glass was a wearable device that had a little screen up here and a little camera, and that's basically it. It was honestly pretty innocent. Yes, it had a camera and could record. That's creepy. We'll get to that in a bit. But largely, as far as wearable tech goes, it was pretty out of the way and did have some reasonable applications. Ultimately, it kind of found its way into very niche business use cases and has been discontinued. But Google Glass was a thing that came out and people had their first reaction to wearable smart tech that records you. Fast forward to now, and one of the leading providers of smart glasses on the market is Meta, the Zuckerberg company. They've partnered with Ray-Ban, and they have these Meta AI smart glasses, and sort of the main draw of these things is they have cameras on them to record point of view footage. You can also at any time be like, hey, Meta, here's I'm saying a thing, do some AI stuff and talk back to me or whatever. They're AI-powered glasses. However, it is 2026. They are not actually AI-powered glasses. They are glasses that connect to Meta's servers and process all of the information there. So here's what happened. A few months ago, a Swedish newspaper did an investigative report that showed that there is a firm in Africa that's been reviewing footage recorded from these glasses. A firm called Sama in Kenya was using real people to review videos recorded from these glasses so that they could tell AI what the video was. AI systems don't have a basis of reality. They don't know what things are. They need humans to give them references and explain what things are so that they can hopefully draw a parallel the next time that they have something to do with that. But you can't just get that for free. That data doesn't exist. And so there's a real manual labor that goes into training these AIs by taking things and describing them to the AI system. So this office was full of people doing exactly that. And they were watching the content that people recorded from their glasses, including going to the bathroom, or having sex, or changing clothes. Workers at this firm were like, hey, this is super uncomfortable. And they ended up talking to some journalists and sharing what's going on. Meta, being Meta, is like, hey, I don't know why everybody's upset. Our terms of service says that all of the data processed by the glasses goes to our servers and is processed by us and our third parties. They have since been like, we're no longer working with that third party. Stop being mad at us. Now, to be clear, some people definitely record some spicier stuff on purpose with these glasses, but some people don't even realize they're recording. One worker from Sama mentioned that there was a video that showed a woman changing clothes, but the video seems to have started when a guy put his glasses down on like a nightstand and seemingly accidentally started to record. Later on, his wife came into the room and changed right in view of the camera. And that video ended up on someone's screen, halfway across the world. Now, this is only one of the big problems with smart glasses. I haven't even mentioned the growing trend of men wearing these glasses to go harass women, or the upcoming feature that Meta has touted where you'll be able to look at someone and their AI will give you a profile of them, including their name and any other information it knows. Totally not a massive problem. Hey, it's at this point that I want to say computer science ethics courses are desperately lacking. As evidence, I submit everything I've said so far. I just want to mention the Iran war. It's still going on. As of right now, like time of recording, there's a bunch of inscrutable discussion about a potential end to the conflict. I have my doubts, but instead of trying to say anything concrete right here, I just want to say, lightning round. A reservation logistics company accidentally deleted their entire production database and all backups because of an AI tool they were using. Here's the weather. The new CEO of Xbox has ended the development of Copilot for Xbox. Good. There's been an ongoing effort from a bunch of like teens and young people who are storming into Scientology buildings to try and map them out. It's pretty fun. GameStop made an out-of-the-blue offer to purchase eBay. eBay was like, what the fuck? There is currently a cruise ship stranded out in the Atlantic where there's an outbreak of a potential variation of a hantavirus. Specifically, Andes virus, with a near 40% mortality rate. Multiple people have already died, and that's been confirmed of hantavirus. I want to be clear, this is not likely to become the next pandemic. I cannot predict the future, but it does not appear that this is going to just be a disaster. And finally for today, a New England seafood company donated a lobster to an aquarium because the lobster had a really rad coloration to its shell. Like an epic skin. It's got like it's like a split down the middle, and it's like orange on one side, black on the other. Fucking Halloween lobster. Spooky lobster. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what pattern your shell would be if you were a lobster. My name is Endeavorance. We'll talk again soon. Take care and be well.